Wow, it's a full church. I'm so pleased to be able, and was asked to come to speak to you today. I did come back to this church once since my late husband and I were here. And I think it was an annual meeting time for the district that I came. But this is the first time since then that I've been back here, and it's still a beautiful place. Still a beautiful place. And you all are so fortunate, and I don't know how else to express it, to build this place on this spot. It's beautiful. And I'm so happy to be here today with you, because a lot of things have happened since when I was here in the late 1980s. My sermon is entitled Rational Spirituality. And I never thought of this before, but what is irrational spirituality? Spirituality has different meanings to different people. So maybe I'm adding another view that I call rational spirituality. I'll begin with a text from Webster. Spiritual, of the soul as distinguished from the body, showing much refinement of thinking and feeling, of religion or the church, intellectual, sacred, not temporal, ecclesiastical, not lay, supernatural. Well, the definition that most closely resembles my understanding of spiritual is refinement of thought and feeling. Two separate but related activities of our lives, thinking and feeling. Spirituality in Unitarian Universalist congregations has been under discussion for many years. I don't know how the last time you thought about spirituality. In one congregation, and it was this congregation, a professor of philosophy and religion said that the most spiritual thing to him was the invention of window screens. Does anyone remember that? Well, I did, obviously. He explained how that one invention had probably prevented more disease than any other single factor, and that to him was spiritual. Some would deny the existence of spirituality. Some don't like what they know about it. And others want more of it, but a different kind, which is not easily defined. The Holy Spirit is accepted as a reality in many Christian churches, but it too varies in expression depending upon the denomination of Christianity. When we sing Spirit of Life from our hymn book, some might think of the Holy Spirit. Lively worship, a trademark of Pentecostal churches, may mean being possessed by the Holy Spirit, such as speaking in tongues or glossolalia. Some Christians trace glossolalia to Pentecost, the post-Easter celebration of the descent of the Holy Spirit upon the apostles. Glossolalia is also said to have originated from the Buddhists, who claimed that when Buddha addressed gods, demons, men, and animals, all heard the Enlightened One speak in the language that they could understand. An Assembly of God minister once said, "It's not just the Pentecostals who have their hands raised. Many have learned the value to enter physically and emotionally into worship." He goes on to say, "That which is of value and importance touches not only the intellect, but the emotions, thinking, and feeling." Now, I remember this. This sermon I had used in other places. A number of years ago, I attended a Sunday service at the Arlington Unitarian Universalist Church in Boston. During the singing, a number of the people began to wave their hands above their heads. It seemed to me that they were really getting into the Spirit. Well, being religious and spiritual are not necessarily the same thing. I think of religious as having connotation of devout, pious, of the church, while spiritual is something otherworldly, beyond the senses, intuitive, other than rational. It may be a moment or longer when we catch a glimpse of something greater than ourselves, something that connects us to all that is. These have also been called peak experiences, or flashes of deeper insight, which may last only a second or two, but which we remember vividly, and which have been seeds for change in our lives. Just think for a moment, has this ever happened to you? Times of great insight are quite common, whether we call them spiritual, mystical, a revelation, or simply insight. Sometimes they change our lives. I will never forget this experience that happened when I was in my early teens. I was very active in my Methodist church, attending Sunday school in the morning and the Methodist Youth Fellowship in the evening. The preacher was very good at preaching against sin, which included going to the movies on Sunday, smoking and drinking, and dancing. Now, this has been a long time ago, you realize that. Since we lived in the country, when I was growing up, 4 miles from town, really a very small town, going to the movies on any day was an infrequent event, not missed at all on Sundays. My parents did not drink or smoke, so this was no problem for me. But dancing was another matter. For this was the activity of my peers, and it was most important for me to be accepted socially. So I struggled and struggled with this issue. Now, this really happened, I want you to know. I could see no reason that God would not like for me to dance. What it seemed to me to boil down to was that it was a matter of my obedience to God as interpreted by the minister. If God said so, it must be done, or I would be guilty of disobeying God. So, one night I was washing the supper dishes. Now, this is before electric dishwashers. And mulling this predicament over and over again, a brilliant insight came to me, a revelation, a saving experience, while my hands were in the dishwater, not while I was kneeling at the church altar. Regardless of my minister's admonition that dancing was a bad activity, my reasoning and feeling said otherwise. It then became a situation directly between God and me, leaving the minister out. Clearly, I wanted to do what God wanted me to do, but it's not clear at all that it was necessary to give up dancing. I felt in my heart that if or when God would show me that dancing was detrimental, I would willingly give it up. Well, at this point, I must have united obedience and rationality. And I suddenly had a deep feeling of peace in my whole body. I took my hands out of the dishwater, went to my bedroom, and closed the door. I lay on the bed for quite a while, just feeling this deep peace. Well, looking back on this experience, it could have been the beginning of my independence from outside religious authority. Prior to this time, I had sought the emotional experience of salvation on many occasions when the altar call came and the invitational hymn began playing. Some of you may have been experiencing this when you were growing up. That experience never came, but I did get saved from religious authority while my hands were in the dishwater. George Beach, Unitarian Universalist minister. Did you ever hear of George Beach? Anybody? Okay. He and his wife attended a National Symphony concert, and here's his story. On came the pianist, 20-year-old Peter Jablonski, and the silver-haired guest conductor, Peter Mag, who could have been the soloist's grandfather. They began. They soared, and when it was over, we cheered. There was no describing the thrill of the music, heightened by the sight of the pianist's absolutely authoritative hands and the graceful interplay between the youthful soloist and the aged conductor. It was a kind of ecstatic performance that draws you in, making you a participant in the event. Beauty and excellence of being. This is a spiritual experience. Now, I don't know whether you all have ever thought about a spiritual experience, but that's what I'm talking about. A song invites us to join in. A story touches us deeply. Being with friends in a time of stress, joy, or personal loss. Spirituality is connectedness. In answer to a layperson's question to scientists as to why do they study any particular subject, the simple answer is to get more information. No telling when it might be useful or not. I simply want to know. I'm curious, so I'm paying attention or studying it. Well, getting more information often leads to questions of how or why in order to understand what has been observed. Insights often follow as explanations of theories and the scientific process continues in ever-flowing cycles. Do you remember the story of Archimedes, who, while he was in the bathtub, fully realized the explanation of the weight of a body immersed in a liquid, and he ran out naked in the street calling, "Eureka! I have found it!" Now, this is the marvelous story of a spiritual experience. You all might have your own definition of a spiritual experience, or you may not even think about it at all. Unitarian Universalist minister Mike Young. Have any of you all known Mike Young? He reminds us that the root of spirituality means breath. He said, it comes from a time when people noticed that without this unseen stuff, one was dead. Now we know it is nitrogen, oxygen, carbon dioxide, and a few other trace gases as substantial as the lungs that breathe it. It became a metaphor for all of those usually unnoticed and therefore mysterious influences and interconnections. Physical, historical, social, and relational. All of these that nurture, sustain, and give meaning to life that is continually emerging. They are as vital as the air we breathe, yet we are usually as unaware of them. Think about it. You're breathing. It's the air that surrounds us. And how important is that? Spirituality has nothing to do with living in any particular pious fashion. It has everything to do with living with a sense of being open to and aware of those influences and interconnections, whatever kinds of words are used to talk about. A number of years ago, when I was wondering what spirituality meant, have you ever wondered what spirituality meant, or have you ever thought about it? I was also seeking meaning in my dreams. Have any of you all ever had, I used to write my dreams down. This was a period of time that I was really paying attention to what I dreamed, because I knew they meant something, but I'd have to think about it after I woke up. I wrote my dreams down as soon as I woke up, and then I later tried to figure out what the dreams meant. You ever thought about that? Your dreams mean something, but you don't usually think about what they mean. Well, I was also learning to send and receive faxes on my home computer. Now, this was a while ago. At that time, a separate component was needed with the home computer in order to send and receive faxes. The component that I had bought was called FaxWorks. I was seeking solutions to two kinds of situations: the meaning of spirituality and sending and receiving faxes. My dreams proved very helpful. The location of my first dream was in the kitchen where we were preparing to eat breakfast. My dream companion, no face or sex, said, "Spirituality is in a cereal box." Well, imagine my surprise to find out that spirituality is in a cereal box. I have it right here in the cupboard and reached in and pulled out a cereal box. Well, imagine my surprise to find that spirituality is in a cereal box. I eat cereal every morning. Dream analyst, Unitarian Universalist minister Jeremy Taylor, in his book Where People Fly and Water Runs Uphill, said that dreams come not to tell us something that you already know. So what did my dream mean? As I processed it, these ideas came to me. Spirituality is the intuitive, the inner life, inside the box, inside the cupboard, as compared to the sensory or outer life, eating the cereal. Spirituality is the meaning as compared to the event. Then further processing yielded the meaning is always colored by the culture and the times in which we lived and may be reached beyond the rational. Such meaning, however, must be interpreted by reality or sensing, just as sensing is interpreted by inner experience. As former slave Sojourner Truth said in her famous speech, "Ain't I a woman? Well, ain't I spiritual? Even though I write without beautiful poetical expression?" Contemplation is a spiritual process. It is characteristic of human beings to seek meaning in life. Many people want more spirituality, meaning, and are susceptible to manipulation of the spirit. One of my friends has paraphrased Universalist P.T. Barnum, the great showman, to say that people have a need to be conned. Now, do you believe that? Well, even if this were true, it does not deny the ability of people to create meaning that doesn't conflict with outer reality. Now, I had a dream the next night, which yielded these insights. Spirituality as cereal, part 2. Now, this really happened. Cereal is roughage. So I asked myself, spirituality is roughage? Cereal contains vitamins, minerals, and other nutrients, but is not a complete food. Cereal needs dressing up with fruit and milk. Cereal begins the day. Well, processing the dream continued a couple of days later. Here it is. Cereal provides roughage, which is necessary for the proper working of the digestive system. The digestive system is the gut of life. Spirituality is the guts of life. The feeling, the meaning, the why, and sometimes how. Gut equals nourish. Nourish what? Nourish the soul. Define soul. You can't print soul with faxworks. Aha! I had just been having a problem learning to use faxworks. It just seemed logical to me that if a fax were sent from my computer through faxworks, a received fax would come into faxworks and then go into my computer. And I could read it on my monitor. Well, you know, that's wrong. Well, that's what I thought at first. $35 later, with America Online help line, I learned the answer. An incoming fax goes to faxworks and then into the printer, not the computer. There are two functions related to faxes, sending and printing. There are two kinds of human activities that are related, feeling, and thinking, intuition and reason, spirituality, rationality. So you can't fully explain spirituality rationally because they're two different systems. You can send and receive but not print. To be greatest of worth, a spiritual or intuitive experience must be printed, played out on the great realm of outer reality, the sensory world. This is what I call rational spirituality. The meaning came to me in a dream. For a while, some time ago, I was writing my dreams down as soon as I had them. I'd wake up and I had a tablet by my bed and I would write my dreams down because you know you forget about them after a while. And then I would go back to them, read them, and what in the world did that mean? You know, sometimes I could figure out what it was trying to tell me, the dream was trying to tell me. Rational spirituality is a natural phenomenon, not supernatural. I think I asked you this. Have any of you ever written your dreams down and then tried to determine? Yeah, I see. Yeah. It helps, doesn't it? Figure out, why were you thinking this? Why did you dream this? Sometimes you can figure it out, sometimes you can't. When Albert Einstein was asked when did he have the first inkling of the idea for his theory of relativity, he replied that the basis of the idea had first come to him in a dream when he was an adolescent. He reported his dream and said that, in a sense, my entire scientific career has been a meditation on that dream. I never thought about my dreams having such an impact that Albert Einstein had. Einstein's insight came relatively in his dream and was played out when he developed his theory. My insight about dancing came when mulling over the problem while washing dishes. It was played out when I went dancing without guilt. I don't know whether any of you all grew up knowing, were taught that that's not the right thing to do. Now, folk dancing was a different thing, but social dancing wasn't. I never could figure that out. The connection of human insight and reason came to me through a dream. Spirituality is a human characteristic of meaning seeking. Rational spirituality is a natural phenomenon in which insight is connected to outer reality. It's an intuitive experience of making sense of the data that are ever present in life, of paying attention in a different way, of making connections with ideas, with feelings, with people, of making life more beautiful and pain more bearable, of feeling great peace and joy, of extending life to need more than a physical existence. It is beyond reason, but it is reasonable. A spiritual experience can be in a dream or in an ordinary activity like washing dishes, or through music or art or sermon, or many other ways. So, many of us expect some sense of spirituality in our Sunday services. So, I suggest may your Sunday services provide this in a variety of ways. And may we also be aware of other spiritual experiences that we have in our daily life. And may we allow our lives to become more meaningful. So be it.